Resident outside of the United States? Have you been considering moving abroad from the United States? Have you been looking at all these other people who are online, who have taken the big leap of packing up all of their stuff, uprooting their life, and leaving the United States? Is moving abroad something that has been on your heart and in your spirit, and something that you have been wanting to do for how long? I don't know. 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, 10 years. I have heard everything across the board, okay? If you have been wanting to live abroad, then I am really happy to say that you are in the right place, because today we are going to be talking with someone who is an expert on helping people plan for long-term living outside of the United States. Hello, Shauna. Hello, Midlife Bro Logic. I love that name. Hello, y'all, and welcome. So soon, I'm going to have Jennifer Laskin on here. And like I said, she's someone who actually specializes in helping people do long-term planning for anyone who wants to be a permanent resident outside of the United States. So once she's in here, we're going to bring her on. I'm going to be asking her more about how she even got here, like why she does what she does, right? As well as how she can help you. And of course, you can ask her any questions. If you're watching the replay, hello, welcome. You can still feel free to drop any questions. And yeah, it's gonna be a dope conversation. So make sure that y'all stay tuned in. So just in case you don't know me, or just in case it's your first time joining any of my videos, my name is Bianca. Me and my husband left the United States to live abroad last year as digital nomads. So February 4th, 2024, we got on a one-way flight to Brazil. And I mean, I feel like it's kind of dramatic to say we haven't looked back, but it really has been an incredible journey, to be honest with you. So you know what? I was going to be like, it wasn't an easy decision, but actually it kind of was an easy decision. If I'm being real honest with you, like we thought we were going to move to Florida, and then we were like, why would we do that when we could literally leave the country? So yeah, I left the United States last year, February 2024, to live abroad. And it's just been an incredible journey. And, you know, I go live so that you can see the behind the scenes, so that you can see like, hey, I'm a real person. I'm not just this girl online who does these, you know, cool travel things. Like I am a real human who you can ask questions to. I'm a real human who's here to share you the good, the bad, and the ugly about travel and living abroad. Because I do feel like some of these people be out here making it seem like living abroad is just all lush and luxury. And let's be honest, no, it's not. Okay. It is not all lux and luxury. So, and it doesn't mean it's not a beautiful thing. I mean, I will be very honest with y'all. I tell people all the time, living abroad is not for everybody, right? So you have to determine if it is the life for you. I can confidently say after, what is it? It's about to be May. So it's been like 14 months now. Like at this point, it's really, really hard for us to imagine doing, it's really hard for us to imagine going back to the US like permanently, but you know, we are going to keep it open. We are going to continue to take it like month by month, day by day, because honestly, after being abroad for this long, y'all, I don't know, because we just feel so much happier abroad. Hold on, I'm just making sure that Jen can get in here. Join the live. Sorry, I'm trying to text behind here. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I just want to make sure that Jen could get in. But yeah, so I lost my train of thought now. What was I talking about? I'm sorry, I forgot. That happens to me literally all the time. Please forgive me. But anyway, like I said, I think I was talking about how living abroad is not for everybody. Yeah, I personally don't think it's for everybody. I always recommend that people travel first before they just go and uproot their entire life from the United States. Like if you are not someone who is at least somewhat well-traveled, again, like I personally don't recommend just being like, I've never even been out of the US, but I'm about to go get my passport and just move to another country. Like I think it's very important to actually get some sort of experience in being in other countries, because in the United States, there's so many things that we are used to. There's so many things that we we take for granted so many things that we don't even think about that often because it's just kind of, I don't even necessarily want to say like handed to us, but it's just the culture, right? The culture is very different, and people love to say things like, oh yeah, I love exploring other cultures, like I love doing all of these things, and I'm like, it's very different if you go to, Montego Bay and you go to a resort versus you're talking about living abroad, right? It's very different whenever you're talking about grocery shopping in another language. It's very different when you are driving in another country, and in some cases maybe just walking across the street in another country, because Lord knows trying to walk across the street in Hanoi, Vietnam was literally almost like an Olympic sport. So again, living abroad is not for everybody, but it is something that has really made such a huge difference in like my marriage. It's made a huge difference in my life, my happiness, my peace of mind, like all of it. So at the end of the day, I absolutely have no regrets. We've actually been back to the US to visit twice since we left. Hey Jen, once you send a request to join, I'll let you in. We've been back to the US twice to visit since we left, and to be honest with you, it's one of those things that it's actually made it even more, like it's made us even more confident in our decision with living abroad. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, but let's go ahead and let in Jen. Ready to partay, SpongeBob? Does anybody remember that episode? Me and my husband have that joke, and we go back and forth with that all the time.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Great.
Okay,
Thanks
perfect.
for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. I'm just making sure.
Are you
I always like,
in
because I
Meta?
go live on like multiple platforms. It's like you go live on YouTube and it's horizontal. You go live on TikTok and it's vertical. You go live on Instagram and it's square. So it's like I always have to
Oh,
adjust anytime I'm like
let me
going
close my
live with
door.
someone else. But welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the first time I've done like a live on Instagram
Oh,
like this.
really? Oh,
Yeah,
you
it's
mean like
pretty
a
cool.
collaborative one?
Yeah. Yeah, like an interview like this. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I've been doing a lot of YouTube the past year and a
Yeah.
half.
Yeah.
And then TikTok was my first that's my favorite platform.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
I love
But
TikTok.
I know it's, yeah, me too. But let's digress because I feel like these platforms be listening.
I
They
know,
don't
right?
like
Okay,
it.
so we shouldn't talk about our love of the other one, but I love Instagram. I actually love Instagram too. It's fun. I like the filters. I love it for photos and the reels. Like actually, one of my law videos won like best educational
Oh,
educational
cool.
law video. Yeah, about a paternity
Oh,
test.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's so dope. Well,
I
well, speaking of law, let's rewind a little bit. First of all, Jen, okay, we've given Jen a welcome, but tell us a little bit more about you. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? Talk to us. Let us know who Jen Laskin is.
Yeah, so Jen Laskin in this context is a lawyer and a content creator, and going to talk to y'all tonight about moving abroad. So I'm a
Yep.
traveler. I've traveled a lot of my life. I've been a bunch of different places. I lived in Mexico and Chile for about 2.5 years of my life right after college. And this was before there was like programs to teach English and stuff like that. I just went
Yeah.
and made my way. I was a teacher. I am a teacher, and I'm also a lawyer. I was a teacher and went to law school later in life. So I'm Jenny Justice on TikTok, and I'm Lawyer Chick on Instagram. And also I have an Instagram and a TikTok, but the Instagram has probably more videos. Retirement season. So in the past couple of years, I started doing content on your topic in your niche area about like living abroad, moving out of the US, retiring out of the US.
Yeah.
I was inspired by my own experiences, but also when COVID hit, people started doing digital nomad visas
Yep.
and living and traveling that way. Yeah, I just started just being like, I've spent about maybe the past 12 years in the US a lot,
Yeah.
building my career, doing the law thing, doing a lot of like social justice type work. I was in the Bay Area for a long time, and then I moved back here. I'm near Washington D.C., so I'm like in
Okay.
D.C. Baltimore area, and yeah, I went to law school out here and have been doing like the content, this stuff for like I don't know, maybe the past 5 years. I was one of the first lawyers on TikTok,
Oh, that's so
and then kind of grew
dope.
that. Yeah, a bunch of us during quarantine kind of found each other.
Yeah.
So so I'm just been doing these webinars lately. I do webinars. I try and make legal information like high quality and really accessible,
Yeah.
right? So I do a lot of work with entrepreneurs like yourself, content creators. I help people do like LLC formation. That side hustler. I have two online courses. One is just LLCs for creators and side hustlers and entrepreneurs, and one is tax basics for hustlers, entrepreneurs, and independent contractors, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of people are 1099 independent contractors. We're broke already. We get hit with a tax bill that first year. You have no idea. I'm sure you're getting hit with 1099s probably after the first year. People realize that they have like all these taxes to pay. So I started
Yeah.
making content around that. And yeah, that's my goal, is just to make this stuff like accessible. And then I have clients that pay that market
Yeah.
rate, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But my heart lies with, accessible information and justice, right?
Yeah, no, and listen, it's something that we absolutely appreciate. I mean, I'm sure you
Yeah.
know as a lawyer that like that's definitely one of those topics where it's like either you are a lawyer or law probably sounds like gibberish to you. So like it's I think it's always appreciated to have platforms like these and to have people like you who are, prioritizing making it accessible for for the masses. So tell us a little bit more about your travel. So I know you mentioned Mexico and Chile, which I think is so cool because I don't actually know a lot of people who've been to Chile. So I was there in 2019. So I actually lived abroad for 4 months in 2019. I did 4 countries in 4 months: Chile, Peru, Colombia, and Mexico. And before then, like, I'd heard of Chile, but like I never thought much about
So
it. And
what
so
what sent you out there to those
so I
countries?
actually traveled with a company. The company no longer exists, unfortunately, but I did a group travel program because I wanted to travel, but like I didn't want to have to do any of the planning. I'm like a pro at planning travel, but back then
Yeah,
I was very
sure.
intimidated.
Yeah.
I did not know what to do. So basically, I knew I wanted to travel, and then it kind of just fell in my lap. Like my friend was like, "Oh, this company looks cool. Check it out." And then from there, I signed up and I went and did it, and it completely changed my life. But this is about you, so let's hear more about like your travels
Well,
and
this
your
helps
experiences living
me.
abroad.
Yeah, I mean, so I did that, what you did, in 1996. I graduated from
Oh wow.
college in 96, and I had a degree in education, and was like, I didn't have loans at that time. And I
Nice.
decided that I wanted to not just jump into a teaching job. I didn't feel like settling into anything regular in the US. And I thought, I need to learn another language. It's messed up that I only speak one language.
Yeah.
At that time, I spoke Italian, but like Italian because my mom's Italian.
Yeah.
It's not very practical. So I was like, I need to learn a language. And somehow I just kind of put one thing in front of another, and it led me to go to New York after I graduated from college for a month, get a certificate to teach English. I added that to my education degree. And then in the course, I met a couple people who were going down to South America after the course. And I was like, I'll go with you. I
Oh
thought I'd maybe go
wow.
to Europe. I thought I'd maybe go to Eastern Europe. Maybe I had a job offer in Romania.
Oh
But I tried
wow.
not to do that. So at the age of like 23, I think I moved down to Chile with no real plan, just like the idea to teach.
Yeah.
And I just started calling English schools. I learned like Spanish day by
Yeah.
day. I ended up getting a job working and living with a family, a really
Oh
wealthy family. I taught their
wow.
kid English for 4 months. And
That's
then I
so
had a friend in
cool.
Mexico. And so I moved up to Mexico, and I stayed there for like about 2 years.
What part
And I was
of
in Leon.
Mexico?
I was in Leon, and I was in Merida, where
Okay.
you
Oh,
are. I
oh
stayed in
wow, that's
Merida for the
funny.
longest time.
What's
Are
wait,
you still in
you
the
said Leon?
Leon, Guanajuato? Yeah, the middle of Mexico, the geographical center. There's this mountain
Mm,
and this Jesus Cristo.
mm,
That's Leon,
mm.
Guanajuato. It's
Okay.
literally that. And the shoes are from there. It's great. But I ended up going down to Merida, the Yucatan, where are you still
Yeah,
there right now?
I am.
I'm so jealous. So I lived there for well over a year. I mean, I
Yeah.
really love, like, to this day, I offline, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about there's some areas around, like the villages around Merida, that are really cool.
Yeah.
And I have some friends and family that I still stay in really good touch with. I mean, it's my home. It's a part of it's one of my homes, you know?
Yeah.
I just love it. So yeah, I'm so happy that you're there.
Yeah. I mean,
And it's
honestly, I really do love
beautiful.
it here
I mean,
in
they've
Merida.
done a
It's a
lot.
magical place.
They've done a lot to Merida too. Like
Yeah,
Vicente
yeah, of
Fox, when he
course.
became the president in 2004, Mexico puts a lot of resources and love into that whole
Yeah.
area. And I can only imagine with the new president, it's probably like so good.
Yeah, you definitely have to you got to come back because I mean Merida has already they have created a lifelong visitor because honestly we love it here. We thought we were going to come here for like 5 days. This is actually the second time this has happened to me in like I guess I would say like the last year. So I remember whenever we went to Thailand last year and we were like I was like, okay, we'll go to Bangkok. It's easy to fly into there, but you know, it's just another city. We'll stay here for like 5 nights and then we'll leave. And then fell in love with Bangkok. Ended up doing like nine or like no, I was Thailand 9 weeks. I think we were in Bangkok for like 7 weeks. Originally started out with 5 days, and basically the same exact thing happened here in Merida. I was like, I don't know, Merida kind of sounds like this sleepy little town. I was like, let's just go there for like a week, and then we can go to Mexico City. I was like telling my husband, like, Mexico City is so fun, and then oh my God, got here in Merida,
It's
and I was like probably like
cooler.
day 3 or 4. I was like, I really love it here.
It
So
blows
yeah,
Mexico
we've
City
been here a
away.
minute now.
Yeah, it blows
Hmm?
Mexico City away.
Yeah.
It's just a better
It's a
area.
it's a completely different vibe. I mean, I love Mexico City as well. I definitely feel like Mexico City is obviously more like fast paced, so it's like it does depend on what you're looking for, but I mean, many of that the beach alone is like almost enough to just sell me. So,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
it's really cool to hear about it's cool to hear about your travels, right? And especially from the perspective of someone who actually helps people with long-term planning.
So,
So
so
before we
that's
kind
the
of get
thing.
into
Yeah.
hmm?
I well, I wanted to know, do you stay long term, or do you just doing short term travel, and that's kind of what your plan is to just keep living place to place like that slow travel? Or do you have a
So
plan to like stay somewhere and try and sink some roots out of the
yeah,
US?
we get that question a lot, and we honestly the answer these days is TBD. Like
Yeah.
we planned to do 2 years abroad. We were going to do like 2024 was going to be our digital nomad year, and then this year was supposed to be our settled year. It did not happen that way. We have still been nomadic, but we are craving a little bit more of like a settled life. So we are at least getting to a point where we're like, okay, we need to go somewhere for at least like 4 months. Like we need to, because the longest we've stayed is we did 2.5 months in Colombia last year, and that was like the longest that we've stayed in one country. So as of right now, we're like, okay, let's get to a point where we stay somewhere for at least like 4 months, 5 months at a time, but. We're still taking it day by day because every time we think we have a plan, things change. So we're just like, this is what we're doing right now, and we'll see what happens next.
That's life. That's how life
Yeah,
is too, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. I love what you said earlier. Whenever you were like, you kind of went to Chile and you didn't necessarily have a plan, and you were figuring it out because I feel like, and you probably get this a lot too. Whenever it comes to moving abroad, like we want things to be so complicated. We want to have everything figured out. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing research. Of course, do your research, but I tell people all the time, I'm like, you could read a Mexico dictionary front to back, and you're still going to have things come up that you didn't expect. You're still going to have inevitable setbacks. You're going to get there, and you're still going to be blown away by the experience. So, get your need to know information and just like take off your oh it has to be this way hat and just let things flow because that's how it's going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I tell people, bring twice the money and half the stuff you think you'll need, and then you'll be
Oh yeah,
fine.
especially half the stuff. Oh my God, yeah, yeah, that's a big thing as well. Like, oh my God, how did you pack? And I'm like, I got rid of most of the things because when you go to move abroad, you realize, oh, I don't need all of these things that I have accumulated over the last whatever decades of my life. And the two times that we have gone back to the US to visit, every time I go in storage, I'm like, let's get rid of this. Like we already got rid of most of our stuff. And every time we go home to visit, we still are getting rid of more stuff because like you get so far removed from those attachments, which I think is one of the most beautiful things about moving abroad.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that for sure. So yeah, so now I've been helping people more on the other end, like at the older ages
Yeah.
of life, plan for a type of resettlement.
Yeah.
It looks different for everybody, but when you get older, you know, you have like more health
Yeah.
needs. You want more like established routine somewhere,
Yep.
comfort, affordability, you know,
Yeah.
that stuff really matters when you get
Yeah.
older. So I have kind of been wading into those waters of researching and helping people figure out like what countries offer retiree
Yeah.
visas, temporary or like semi-permanent residency. You know, you can never give up your US citizenship. So I don't know if people on here are like American citizens. See, we have a few people watching.
I mean, well, that's
But
typically my target audience, like
yeah,
people who are in the US.
so
Yeah.
if you're American citizens, yeah, you don't ever entirely want to, or should you give up your whole citizenship and become a full citizen of another country, unless that's really your plan
Yeah.
and you're really like set there and but the I guess the lifeline to your citizenship is important. And once you give that up, if you ever want to come back to the United States, you're an undocumented immigrant.
Yeah.
And we see how that's going right now in the
Yeah, I
US.
mean,
So
and it's funny.
you
I've never even, I personally have not even considered giving up my. I don't even think anyone's ever asked me about that.
oh
Honestly, if anything, people will like they might ask me something about like dual citizenship, but I don't think anyone's ever straight up been like, how do I just completely leave? And I think that's one of those things where I mean, like a lot of things, like it if that's something that makes sense for you to do, I just think it's a decision to not be made lightly, right? Like now, if you leave the U.S., you know you've been out of you haven't lived in the U.S. for 10 years, and you're like, I honestly know that I have like I'm good. Then sure, but I definitely don't think it's a decision to be taken
well,
lightly.
here's the thing. What drives that decision is the length of time that somebody's going to stay out of the US and how settled or how how settled you need to be, right? An older person might want to go for like 10 months or a year,
Yeah,
or not be able to, like what I did and what you're probably doing is you just go in for the tourist length of a tourist visa, and then you cross the border and you come right back and you just renew your tourist visa. And if you're not really working in that country, then you can live and do what you're doing on a tourist visa,
yeah,
and do your thing. But once you want to stay longer or become more settled or buy property or bank, or access health services or things like that, then yeah, people want some kind of like a little bit of a different legal identification
yeah,
in the countries. But yeah, it really depends on length that you're going to stay, because like old folks don't want to be driving 3 months in, 3 months
yeah.
out,
Agreed.
across the border, go to Argentina, stay in a hostel, and come back to Chile.
Yeah,
No, that's not happening.
yeah. No, that is completely a fair point. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because like when I actually look at my like insights on TikTok, and it's different on every platform. I'm paying closer attention when I look at my insights on TikTok. Most of my audience is actually like 44 to 54, which kind of like shocked me. Like I was like, and on all platforms on TikTok, I was like, okay, that's interesting. But I mean, at the end of the day, people want to move abroad for different reasons, for different ages, all of that.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to ask you is like, I know you said that based on like the last year, you've been focusing more on like the moving abroad topic. And I'm just curious, like how has, if at all, your travels kind of like impacted your decision and like even wanting to help people do these types of things?
I think I just enjoy traveling and I wanted to share. I wanted to do it myself. I guess it
Yeah.
always starts with me. Like, I want to do this, and then how can I sustain doing that? Right. So it was like, well, look, if I'm making travel videos or making content about living in places, then I can partner with realtors or restaurants or, and then I can go there and like, it's a business write-off, right? There's the business lawyer in me. So all the travel becomes a business write-off. And then there was content for it. I was also playing a lot of golf at that time, and like golf is very much like a traveling retiree type of
Yeah.
sport. So there was some golf content like built into this, this retirement visa information. And also I did a little research for this live, and I found 10 countries that will pay you to move there.
Oh, nice.
So there's actually quite a few, Chile being one of them, countries who will like have incentives for you to move and live. And usually you have to live in a specific part of the country, like a
Yeah.
rural area.
Yeah.
So it's not as easy. It's not like you get to move to Barcelona,
Yeah.
but if you want to move in like the Puga province of Spain, you can live there.
Yeah.
But it'll be fun. So I think for me, my experience is infused into this part of my content because I was already helping people with taxes,
Yeah.
some life financial planning. I do, so I was just seeing that people were interested in it. And, I'm always looking for that content myself. So I
Yeah.
started seeing like other people's content, being like, okay, I could do like short videos that are more like interesting and a little more, fun to watch. Because some of the content is very dry, and it's just like people are just making Canva slides and like
Yeah.
making Canva presentations, and like that's not real sustainable content. It gets
Yeah.
very old,
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
So I think that's how my my travel has influenced this part of my work now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's it's always cool to have at least somewhat of the experience yourself, and especially as you're helping other people do this, because I imagine that there are some lawyers out there who maybe have, I'm not going to be dramatic and say maybe they've never stepped foot outside of the US, but they're not necessarily like well traveled. And as you know, because like you said, like you've actually lived abroad, and that's another thing I say all the time, there's such a big difference in vacation versus travel versus living abroad. Like these three things are very, very different. And a lot of people unfortunately make the mistake of thinking like living abroad is just like a permanent vacation, or like living abroad is going to look something like, yeah, well, I went to Cancun for 5 days and I love Cancun. And I'm
Yeah.
like, girl, that has nothing.
Yeah.
Your resort experience in Cancun is not going to have anything to do with what your life looks like every day, like your everyday living
Yeah.
in Mexico.
Yeah.
That's going to look completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. When I left in 96, I didn't want to be a tourist.
Yeah.
I was like, I just want to live somewhere and work somewhere. Hold on. I want to try a few things. I've never done this okay, Instagram Live, so I'm seeing like what the different features are here.
Oh,
Okay, cool. Is there a way I can share the live on my Instagram, or can I just
it
copy
is. It should be like
Okay.
it'll show to your audience that you're live.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So, because I can share this live video. But anyway, so I'm fascinated by it. And honestly, now, especially, a lot of people want to leave. A lot of people are trying to leave. So this most current webinar I've been doing, which is just how to move out of the US, basics, how to start the research, what to think about,
Yeah.
It's really picked up, and there was just gobs and gobs of interest. And especially for like, it's not even about people wanting to be out of the US in their older age. A lot of people can't afford to retire here anymore.
Yeah.
Your dollars, if you retire on US dollars in a foreign country, your dollar goes further.
Yeah, for sure.
You have a much better quality of life. So like a retiree's income can be $1,500 a month to $5,000 a month. And in Panama, you can actually live, really nicely on that.
Yeah.
Whereas in the US, it's like a hard no.
Yeah.
You're like living like terribly. So that's also a motivator that I think people are, this 44 to, you're in that age bracket of TikTok, they're starting to think 10 years out,
Yeah.
You're 44 or 45 and you're like, in 10 years, I'm going to be like, kind of moving on in my next chapter. And I think that's probably driving people to you too.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I'll probably at some point, try to talk to more people about that who are actually in that age group, because I mean, like, I'm 32, so I feel like I'm definitely more just in the minds. I mean, as you can see, like with me moving around and stuff, like, I'll be very honest with you, I don't think much about retirement. I personally don't ever want to retire. I feel like I love what I do, so I
Well,
don't mind
here's the
working
thing.
for
It's
the
not
rest of
your,
my life. But I do know there is a difference in like not having to
yeah.
work versus versus just being like, oh, I just don't want to do anything. But this is why I'm glad that I get another, that I do have another perspective. And I can imagine, being, whether it's, like 45, 55, etc. And, like you said, there is that realization of, oh wow, like, in 10 years, like, I'm going to be this age. But I think also the other piece of it is recognizing like, hey, I've been on this planet for X amount of decades and I haven't really been anywhere. I haven't really seen the world. Like, I feel like that's something that comes up a lot whenever I talk to people, like even when
Mhm.
I was a social media consultant. Like, I remember I did this survey and I was like, if your business was making all the money you wanted it to make, what is like the first thing you would do? And 90% of the responses were travel. Like, people are recognizing that life is so much more about work. Life is so much more than just, like the hustle culture and like productivity and getting things done. And there's a really big world out there. And, obviously, just for the sake of math, as you get older and time goes by quicker, you become, you have even more clarity about like, okay, life is going on by. What have I really done that sets my soul on fire?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think and I also think what you're doing and traveling when you're younger helps you become a better world citizen.
Yeah, for
Like if
sure.
your travel is only resorts or, Jamaica, all inclusives, cruises, and then, you're 40, 50, 60, and you do decide to start traveling more. If you don't have like a really clear, I think, on the ground perspective of other countries and other cultures, and I guess a global view of things or an open view of things, or if you're not laid back to a degree, like you say, things
Yeah.
can happen. The thing about all inclusive vacations and those types of experiences is they're very to your desire.
Yep.
And regular travel, budget travel, is not like that.
Nope.
And living abroad is definitely not to your pleasure.
No.
It's quite the opposite. So I think when we have like the experiences of traveling, like figuring it out and, sleeping in airports or buses, like I was reading some of my old journals from when I lived in Mexico. And there was this one
Oh.
entry where it was like, I was literally on buses for like 5 days. Like I went from Merida to Ushkutskab to Cancun to back to Ushkutskab, then to like Chetumal, and then to Merida. Like it was like I'd been on buses for like 26 hours in like 5 days, and I now could not imagine doing that.
Yeah.
But then it was like it was so fun. It was just
Yeah.
great, and you just think about what I did. I'm also an obsessive journaler.
Yeah.
I've been keeping journals. So I want everybody to do that. Keep your journals, especially when you travel, because you'll look back and be like, oh my God, I wasn't as fucked up as I thought I was. Like
It's
I was
actually funny
actually
you
pretty
mentioned that because
happy,
I actually started journaling when I lived abroad in 2019 is when I started journaling.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I completely agree. Documenting the journey, being able to look back and, also just like it makes you like, I think it makes you be more present, right? Like these small things that we sometimes take for granted. It doesn't have to just be in the US, but these small things that you take for granted whenever you are just in kind of you're kind of in your like your autopilot life versus, today where it's like, okay, I can go write down how earlier, I was waiting on someone to finish packing up my meat and then some local came up to me and just sparked up a conversation and we bonded on how like it's like those things like that seem so small but like in the moment they feel so incredible and I'm sure that people people who are listening to this, if you haven't traveled, and hopefully it will inspire you to travel, whether you want to permanently live abroad or not. But I do also know that for a lot of people, it feels intimidating. And I'm curious, like for you, as as a lawyer, as someone who does help people move abroad, what are some of the most common questions, challenges that you get from people who are like, I want to leave the US, what do I do?
Yeah, for them, a lot of people are just looking for the right country.
Yeah.
So where could they live? Where do they want to live? Where have they traveled that they could go back to?
Yeah.
A lot of people are thinking about obviously the finances and how can I work while I'm living somewhere? What work can I do? That becomes tricky.
Yeah.
If you're in a foreign country and you're working, because you're going to if you work locally, you're going to earn a local salary,
right?
Which for an American is not going to it's not going to work.
Yeah. Well,
we're not used to that.
Maybe if you go to Switzerland.
Yeah, right. If we go to Switzerland, right. But most people, if you're going for a lower cost of living, then the salaries are going to be lower, right? So that's one thing is getting people's head around, like, no, you have to actually just live on a lot less. And you just have to figure that, instead of like, what am I going to do to make more money when I travel or to travel? It's like paring down that. So I think that's what a lot of people ask about is like, what is it going to really take for me to sustain myself without this job here? And I think you hit on that. Like I watched one of your videos earlier and it was about like multiple streams of income. And that's just so true. Like, and even like retirement, like your generation is definitely not going to retire like my grandparents or my dad's generation did, and I'm even in that cusp of like early mini retirement. You take a break, you go back to work. I am a teacher. I have taught for 20 years. So I have that pension set up, which is amazing, but even new teachers don't always have that. So it's not even possible to think that way anymore, So I think, people have to figure out all of that. And then people want to know like what countries are favorable to, different types of non-tourist visas and, and what do they want? And, that's really the biggest thing I'm seeing though is people that are just like, where am I going to go? Yeah. Because they've been in the US, like you said, they get in the shell of the United States. Yep. And when, you have like, you're out, you're seeing all these places, and friends I have that travel a lot are definitely have a fresher perspective on like, ooh, I could go here, because they know what it's like in, Brazil or, the Philippines. Like they know what it's like now. So they're like, I could see myself there now. But older couples or, older folks, they need to try to check things out a little more. Yeah. I mean, Mexico is becoming overrun. Every Mexican consulate in the US is just busy with Americans getting their temporary residency cards. For that, they need to show like monthly income. They have to show that they're not working anymore. And most countries protect their job markets. Yeah. They don't want Americans coming and working. They don't. Right.
Which I mean, as they should, in my opinion, like they should protect their job markets.
Yeah. So like, again, it just goes back to like what you're, I think pushing is important is like set up your streams of income so you can be anywhere doing it. Yeah. And then you can like be where you want to be. I think that's really, really timely.
Yeah, no, it's honestly been one of the most game-changing things for me because I've been in the entrepreneurship space since like 2017, and I've worn a lot of different hats. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I have failed at way more things that I have succeeded at whenever it comes to earning money online. But getting to a point where you're looking out for you is how I look at it. I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, these businesses, these jobs, these companies, they're looking out for them. And you can decide to put your energy into trying to, fight for a job that's trying to get rid of you, or you can put that energy into learning how to get income for yourself. And I think one of the most beautiful things is that there are literally so many ways to do it. I think the biggest thing is, number one, not everyone, but so many of us are so used to, oh, you want money, a job, right? Like that's just what it is. And I get it. I was raised the same way. And then also, people are afraid to fail. People are afraid to try. They assume it's going to be too hard or it's going to be too expensive. And that's why I always tell people, well, choose your hard. Like, if you want to be dependent on a job for the rest of your life, if you're okay with staying in a job that's not paying you enough, that you don't like, where you don't have your time freedom, because let's be honest, time is our most valuable asset, not money. Like, if
Mhm.
that's something you're okay with, keep doing what you're doing. Like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna beg you, convince you, chase you. But if you are someone who wants that time freedom, if you want to not be, stuck to a calendar, like if you want to be able to live life on your own terms, and if you don't want to have to depend on this one stream of income, like all the money I have comes from this one check, monthly, bi-weekly, weekly, then be willing to get out of your comfort zone and get creative. Like, be willing to throw spaghetti at the wall. There's hundreds of ways to make money. Like, you don't have to do what I'm doing. You don't have to get on social media. You can, but like, it's not something you have to do. So I think, going back to what you were saying earlier about, really wanting to just make these like legalities more accessible. I feel like that's essentially the same thing that I'm trying to do in terms of travel and living abroad and making more money and letting people know, like, hey, I'm just a regular girl from North Carolina who is out
Mhm.
here looking like I'm doing all these crazy things, but I'm just following my heart, and I'm just willing to put myself out there.
Mhm. Yeah, I've learned way more from my failures than my
Yeah,
successes.
yeah,
Mm,
for sure. For
mm.
sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. Yeah.
Um, oops. Okay, sorry. I thought I messed up a tech thing. Okay, so what is yeah, because I asked you about the FAQ. So like, what do you feel is no, that's not what I want to ask. What is your biggest piece of advice for someone who is like, I want to move abroad. I don't know where to start, and help me, basically. Like, what, and
Mhm.
also, like, based on your experience, like working with clients, based on your experience of travel, what is your biggest piece of advice that you would give?
I mean, first of all, you have to start saving some money, even a little bit, and that's just the reality.
Yeah.
So there has to be some kind of budget set up for it. Because the idea of like, I'm just going to live and work abroad, like you said, you're not going to get that check, every week. So are you going to do a 3 months? Are you going to do a year? I think well, figure out how long you want to do this. Are we looking to move forever?
Mm,
Are we looking for another passport? And that's something else that a lot of Americans are doing now is they are getting uh, passports or residency to other countries through descent. So, like,
mm-hmm.
my grandfather was born in Italy, so I could, if he had it naturalized, I could get an Italian, visa or passport. I could buy land. There's different things I could do. So I think about, like, when I want to live abroad, like, do you just want to go on a slow travel experience like you did for your 4 months in Latin America? Or do you want to go work somewhere and like volunteer in an elephant orphanage in Thailand?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, like, what type of experience do we want? If you're
Yeah.
older, retiree level, then you have to figure out, how much are you bringing in every month? And then you just have to figure out which countries offer long-term visas to American retirees. And there's actually quite a few. You can live in the Philippines if you're earning 800 a month. Even if that's disability, social security, there's many people who get, $900, $1,000 a month on disability,
Yeah.
and they can't afford to live here, so they could look. So I would say, yeah, figure out how long you want to go, where you want to go, and then start saving even $25 a week. Maybe somebody has inherited $50,000 and they're like, I'm going to move abroad on this 50,000. Okay, well, then you have a different problem. Figure out how long you want to be gone, what kind of
Yeah.
experience you want, beach or, mountains, urban, city. And then I love Google. I just would start Googling,
Yeah.
best beach city for 5 months.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't just Google will take you to some, and then again with like TikTok and creators like yourself, there's there's all kinds of people out there doing,
Yeah.
content creation. But I think the budget is important so that you're not super stressed out over it. And then do you want to learn another language? So language is important. Do you speak
Yes.
Spanish? Did you speak Spanish when you went down in 2019?
Yeah. I started learning in 2019.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like a game changer. So I think if somebody's going to go somewhere, they should dedicate themselves to learning at least the basics in whatever
For
language. Even if
sure.
it's a place where English is spoken, they should still learn like something. Like how to order food, how to order a room, how to say thank you, where's the bathroom, stuff like that.
No, I
Yeah.
completely agree. That's a big, I mean, it's respecting the culture and it's doing yourself a favor. And like you said, there are countries, I had reached out to my list a couple days ago about moving to the Netherlands, and I was saying how, like, whenever I was in Amsterdam, I don't remember literally running into anybody who couldn't speak English. However, if I were going to move to Amsterdam, I still would learn at least, I want to get to at least like 20%, right? Of like Dutch, obviously, like in prioritizing the basics, because that is something that I do also hear a lot when people are like, oh, I don't want to have to learn another language. And I'm like, well, then I suggest you stay in the US, or I suggest you go to a country where the native language is English, because the last thing we need is more US Americans going to other countries and not respecting the culture.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I mean, so Ireland and Scotland are actually really incentivizing coming there. So if people want an English speaking country that's not that expensive, Scotland,
yeah,
Scotland is there for you. Yeah, and then learn the basics. I think also learning the language helps you connect with people
for
in a different
sure.
way. Even if you can just say hello, how are you in the native tongue, people are endeared to you and they'll look out for you
Yes,
a little more. And I think that's important. And that's an important benefit of travel, is like connecting with people. I was so blown away. I did go to Singapore, Thailand, and Malaysia one summer. I spent about 2 months. And to me, it was just so far out to be on another side of the
yeah,
planet
yeah,
where the language was so different to mine and the letters, right? It's truly another world. And it's just so old. And I love Buddhism, so I love the temples and stuff.
yeah,
But even just being able to say like kapuka, like thank
yeah.
you in Thai,
Yes.
it's just like makes a big difference, and it warms you to the culture and the where you are. But it
Yeah,
was amazing to be there where it was just so different. It just like we're all human, but man, like there's a lot on the exterior that differentiates us.
for sure.
It was
Yeah,
it
and
was
I
cool.
love, listen, yeah, I love and I love Asia as well. And sometimes me and Mel's my husband, sometimes we'll just be like sawadika like to each other, because we just, and it's funny because whenever we came back from Thailand to the States, like we were accidentally like doing this to people
Yeah,
like in the US, and we had to be like, oh, no, we don't do that
it's
here. But
cute.
it's such a special thing, like you said, like it absolutely connects you a lot more to the locals. It helps them let their guard down. A lot of people, whenever, a lot of locals in these other countries, if they see you coming, they know you're American, they feel intimidated. They feel like, oh no, I don't know English. It's like I feel like it also breaks down a barrier before, whether you're asking, can I go to the bathroom, or where's the bathroom, whether you are asking for directions, like even here in Merida, like always, buenos dias, buenos tardes, like
Mm.
I don't just like walk up like, hey, can you tell me, blah blah blah. It just, yeah, I love that point, because it definitely makes a huge difference.
Yeah, so that would be my other piece of advice, is learn something of the language.
Yeah, no, these are solid pieces of advice, Jen. Thank you so much.
Thank
This has been
you.
amazing. It's been super, super helpful. And if you're watching the replay, hello. If you're watching live, I will post the replay a little bit later. But Jen, before we hop off, let people know, where can we find you? What do you have coming up? What is it that you want to plug?
Okay. You can find me here at this Jen Laskin Legal Instagram, also Lawyer Chick on Instagram, and Lawyer Chick 5000 on YouTube. I have a webinar coming up for how to move out of the US. It's May 17th. It's Saturday, May 17th at noon. And Jenny Justice 555 on TikTok. That is so fun. So yeah, find me any of those places, and happy to hear from everybody and hear about your travels. And it was so nice meeting you. I'm so glad I caught you
Yes,
on that live
absolutely.
yesterday.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and,
So, and I'll see you.
I
You will
literally,
be on my webinar speaking. You're gonna come and make an appearance on the webinar
yep,
on the 17th of May.
yes.
So that'll be great. So we'll talk more about that closer to it, as people register and I see what who registers and what they want to know about.
Yeah, absolutely. So y'all
Thank
make
you.
sure you sign up for the webinar. Make sure that you go and connect with Jen. We literally just met in my TikTok live like last week. So I mean, you never know. Like this is the importance of connections, community, all of that. Jen, thank you again. I really appreciate it. We're gonna hop off here. Thank you for everyone
Bye.
who joined, liked, commented, asked questions, all of that, and we'll catch y'all next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao.